Welcome, friends. Are you sitting comfortably? Good, because tonight I'm going to tell you a story that will make you question whether you'll ever feel safe on holiday again. This is the tale of a British family's dream vacation to Maine, USA, a trip that turned into a nightmare they'll never forget. So, dim the lights, settle in, and let's begin. The story takes place in October, the time of year when the air in Maine turns crisp. The leaves burn with fiery reds and oranges, and the Atlantic Ocean churns with an eerie, restless energy. Maine is known for its rugged coastline, dotted with lighthouses that have stood for centuries, guiding sailors through treacherous waters. But not all lighthouses are simply beacons of safety. Some hold secrets, dark, malevolent secrets. The family in question, the Harpers, were a typical British family of four: David, the father, a history enthusiast with a love for old architecture; Sarah, the mother, a practical woman who always planned their trips down to the last detail; and their two children, 15-year-old Emily, who had a fascination with the paranormal, and 10-year-old Jack, a curious boy with a knack for getting into trouble. The Harpers had always loved Halloween, and this year they decided to do something special. Sarah had found an online listing for a vacation rental in Maine, a historic lighthouse perched on a rocky cliff overlooking the Atlantic. The photos were stunning. A tall, whitewashed tower with a red roof surrounded by crashing waves and endless ocean views. It was remote, isolated, and perfect for a spooky October getaway. When they arrived, the lighthouse was even more breathtaking than the photos. The wind howled through the rocks, and the waves crashed violently below, but the Harpers were enchanted. The owner, an elderly man named Mr. Grayson, met them at the door. He was thin, with a face weathered like driftwood, and eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories. "Beautiful place, isn't it?" he said, his voice gravelly. "But it's got its quirks. Some folks say it's haunted." David laughed, brushing it off as a local legend. Emily, however, was thrilled. "Haunted? Really? What kind of ghost?" she asked eagerly. Mr. Grayson hesitated, his gaze drifting to the lighthouse tower. "They say it's the keeper, a man named Elias Crow. He worked here in the late 1800s, lost his mind after his wife drowned in the sea. They say he still roams the tower looking for her." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Well, we'll be fine. We don't scare easily." But as they settled in, the lighthouse began to reveal its true nature. The first night was uneventful, though the wind seemed to howl louder than usual, and the old building creaked and groaned as if it were alive. Emily insisted on exploring the tower, dragging Jack along with her. The spiral staircase was narrow and steep, the air growing colder with each step. At the top, they found the lantern room, its glass windows offering a panoramic view of the dark ocean. "Do you feel that?" Emily whispered. Jack shivered. "Feel what?" "It's like someone's watching us." Jack laughed nervously, but as they descended the stairs, he couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't alone. The next day, strange things began to happen. Sarah noticed that the kitchen door, which she was sure she had closed, was wide open, letting in the cold sea air. David found his watch, which he had left on the bedside table, sitting on the windowsill in the living room, and Emily swore she heard footsteps in the tower when no one else was there. That evening, as they sat around the fireplace, the lights flickered. "It's just the wind," David said, though his voice lacked conviction. But then came the knocking. It started faintly, a soft tap, tap, tap that seemed to come from the tower. Emily froze. "Did you hear that?" David stood, trying to appear calm. "Probably just the wind rattling something." But the knocking grew louder, more insistent. Tap, tap, tap. It echoed through the lighthouse, sending chills down their spines. David grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the tower. "Stay here," he said firmly. The family waited in tense silence as David climbed the stairs. The knocking stopped abruptly, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. When David returned, his face was pale. "There's no one there," he said. "But the lantern room door was open. I know I closed it earlier." That night, the real terror began. Sarah woke to the sound of Jack screaming. She and David rushed to his room to find him sitting upright in bed, tears streaming down his face. "He was here," Jack sobbed. "The man, He was standing right there. He pointed to the corner of the room, but it was empty. David tried to comfort him, but Jack was inconsolable. He was wet, Jack whispered, dripping wet, and his eyes, they were black. Emily, who had been standing in the doorway, gasped. "It's Elias Crow," she said. "The ghost." Sarah had had enough. "We're leaving tomorrow," she said firmly. But the lighthouse had other plans. As they packed their bags the next morning, the atmosphere in the lighthouse grew heavy, oppressive. The air felt colder, and the walls seemed to close in around them. When they tried to open the front door, it wouldn't budge. "It's stuck," David said, pulling harder. "No," Emily whispered. "He doesn't want us to leave." The knocking started again, louder this time, coming from all around them. The windows rattled, and the lights flickered violently. Then the voice came, a low, guttural moan that seemed to echo from the very walls. "Get out!" The family froze, terror gripping them. David grabbed a chair and smashed it against the door, finally breaking it open. They ran to their car, not daring to look back. As they drove away, Emily glanced at the lighthouse one last time. In the lantern room, she swore she saw a figure, a man, dripping wet, staring after them with hollow black eyes. The Harpers never spoke of their experience again, but they never forgot it. The lighthouse still stands, its light cutting through the foggy Maine nights. And some say, if you listen closely, you can still hear the knocking and the mournful cries of Elias Crow, forever searching for his lost wife. So, my friends, the next time you plan a holiday, think carefully about where you stay, because sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. Sweet dreams.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more.